The Mandalorian probably can't get enough credit for being the life preserver that saved the Star Wars franchise from the disastrous effects of the Disney trilogy. It probably can't be overstated how much of a positive impact it's been having on Disney's streaming service, as well as hitting some much-needed merchandising quotas, I'm sure. It seems to be rekindling interest in the hearts of those who couldn't stand Disney's, shall we say, interpretation of the Star Wars franchise. For all of us who felt the Disney trilogy was a hollow, empty, blatant cash grab that stomped all over the legacy of a once great hero, heroes, really, let's not forget. It's a show that takes a complete and refreshing step away from the saga of the Skywalkers to, well now. I'm not really sure how I feel about this. On the one hand, I really like the anthology film aspect of the show, utilizing completely new characters in a much less explored setting. That allowed them the creativity and freedom to tell their own story without the fear of screwing up legacy characters or stories. But on the other hand, I really enjoyed the giant fuck you to the sequel trilogy, because this absolutely was the Luke we should have seen in the sequels. But in the interest of having the show stand on its own merits, I would like to ask, what if you removed all the fan service? What if you removed the inclusion of existing beloved characters from other Star Wars media and just replaced them with no-name characters and did the exact same things? Would you still love the show? Would it still grab you as much emotionally? Would the characters and character interactions make as much sense to you? And for me, the answer is probably not. Don't get me wrong, fan service and nostalgia are great and all, especially after the aforementioned Disney disaster, but I feel it shouldn't come at the expense of great storytelling and character building. And that's probably the quintessential downside I'm seeing that The Mandalorian has so far, is its sheer reliance on fan service and character callbacks to wow people past its more glaring flaws and issues. Which, I mean, yeah, as much as I enjoy the show, there are a lot. For example, let's start with Mando himself. After 2 seasons, we still don't know a lot about him. We know he was found by a Mandalorian cult named the Children of the Watch, but we don't know anything about him afterwards until we see him here. What about his life before the Watch? What about his parents? Does he mourn them? Is he Star Wars Batman? Did he ever get a chance to press F to pay respects? Better yet, what about his life during the Watch? Is that a life he wants to go back to? If not, why not? Because he still practices their ways, you know, except for when he doesn't. We know that he is a bounty hunter, but we're not really sure why? Is that the life he wants, or is it because there was another guy in Star Wars that was also a bounty hunter and who also wore badass armor and so, you know, like nostalgia berries and such? Question mark. What are his desires? What motivates him as a person, as a character? It's an example of something we probably should have learned a bit more about by now, considering this is our main character. Why is he a bounty hunter? Because it's not like all Mandalorians in Star Wars were bounty hunters or even fighters.
Not all Mandalorians are bounty hunters.
It's not like if you're born a Mandalorian, you're automatically a warrior. The Clone Wars animated series shows us what the Mandalorian homeworld looks like, that there were millions or billions or whatever of just rando citizens. There were peacemakers, eager to undo centuries of warfare that destroyed the homeworld. There were warmongers, hell-bent on restoring Mandalore's former honor and glory. They could live in massive urban developments, working as doctors, teachers, investigators, and politicians. Or they could live in encampments, training and honing their fighting skills to be bounty hunters, terrorists, conquerors, and politicians. So where does Din Djarin fit amongst this much wider scale of psychology? The fact that he is a bounty hunter, of all things, doesn't necessarily explain why he should want to be one. That aspect to his development is something the show sorely lacks, in my opinion. Speaking of, what about the rest of these guys? What the hell exactly do they do all day? Why are they just hiding out? And why do they act all pissy when the one guy who's ever done anything brings back a bunch of their sacred Beskar?
Our world was shattered by the Empire, with whom this coward shares tables.
Oh, come on, Jon Favreau. Lay off him. He's carrying the whole team, bro. I mean, why don't you guys get off your lazy asses and do something for once?
You don't know what it's like out there. There's sandworms and ice worms and...
I love the ideas presented with Mando's character, that he belongs to a cult with cult-like dogmatic beliefs, like never removing helmets around other living things. But do you know why I like that idea? Because it gives Din Djarin something to wrestle with, something to humanize him, give him flaws, and God knows he needs a frickin' chink in his armor. Holy hell, am I right? The problem, though, is that he doesn't wrestle with it. Not really. His creed is shown to be important to him, as evidenced by his hesitation to break it, but when he does break it, he never talks about it to anyone. Probably because his only friend in the whole world is a merchandising director's wet dream who can't even talk. This is one big reason why I hated that they killed 𝗁𝗄𝗏 off so early. Like, what a total waste of a potentially great character. At least Game of Thrones had the foresight to give us time getting to know the characters before they killed him off. It not only made their deaths more impactful, but it had this interesting side effect of introducing adversity into the surrounding characters, which made them grow and change, which made their arcs more interesting. 𝗁𝗏 might have been uniquely qualified to help facilitate this kind of growth in Din Djarin. 𝗁𝗏 spent a very long time being a prisoner. Din is a prisoner to his creed. It just seems like 𝗁𝗏 would have had some interesting opinions about that, and now we'll never get to see. Instead, Din's left to practice his creed's mandate until he, finds a loophole. Anyone who is so dogmatic in their thinking that they are not caught dead outside their armor or with their helmet off, the wearing of which obviously represents a core component of their ideology, their heritage, their very identity, this person does not care about loopholes. Wearing his helmet is a belief that clearly means more to Din Djarin right now than just about anything else. So the fact that he does this in the 4th episode of the show without the prior development or earning of any of it truly broke my immersion. I mean, hell, right before this, there was this dialogue exchange.
Have you ever removed your helmet?
No.
Has it ever been removed by others?
Never.
There was nothing, no dialogue showing him being disaffected by the beliefs and covenants he grew up with, no self-doubt, no worrying over whether or not he was wrong to remove his helmet in front of others. Nothing. He just removes it sometimes and the show moves on like it didn't even happen.
This is the way.
This is an act that would bring dishonor and maybe even destruction to his family by his own thinking. This is simply not how dogmatic characters think and act. Not without miles upon miles trekked through a satisfying character arc showcasing them coming to grips with the reality of their own identity and deeply held beliefs over time, and then challenging them as difficult circumstances force them to start asking the hard questions. Something this important to someone would never be treated like the cheat day of a diet, where it's like, oops, okay, well, I'll just wear my helmet twice as hard the rest of the week.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's just not how any of that works. It's so screwy. And then, as far as screwy things go in the show, there's the bounty tracking fobs. What the hell? Oh my god, the bounty fobs. What in the hell is up with these things? I think in all fairness, most people who've seen this know these are problematic, but I have a lot of questions just in case. Okay, so how do they work? Do they track a subject's DNA, or does someone slip a tracking device inside the target's shoe or something? What is the fob actually tracking? And what's their range? Because it seems the range can be entire planets or solar systems, as evidenced by this guy teleporting from wherever and however to assassinate Baby Yoda. Wait, I thought they wanted to capture Baby Yoda for his blood and for testing, not assassinate him. What the actual whatever, questions for later. Let's just all agree that this episode was only 5 minutes long and featuring an ATST killing things, alright? Anyway, the fobs. Okay, so remember at the end of Batman Begins when Gordon was like, what do we do if the bad guys start buying countermeasures to all of our stuff?
What about escalation?
Escalation.
We start carrying semi-automatics, they buy automatics. We start wearing Kevlar. They buy armor-piercing rounds.
Man.
And you're wearing a mask. Jumping off rooftops.
So if this is a galaxy that now supports the technology of being able to track not only certain kinds of life forms, but even a specific individual across vast distances of space and time, then it stands to reason there'd be a shit ton of motivation to counteract this with something. And then you have to ask yourself, is that problematic? I think the obvious answer is yes. Having one of these fobs would be massively convenient. I can only think of other times and other periods in Star Wars where having one of these stupid fobs would have been extremely helpful. How about when Anakin and Obi-Wan are searching for the shapeshifter in Episode 2? How about in the Clone Wars animated series when the Republic were constantly looking for General Grievous in an effort to try and end the war sooner? How about in Episode 5 when a desperate, cool, handless Luke? Thanks, I'll be here all week. Lay hanging upside down off an antenna, hoping his Force-sensitive sister happened to be listening to his cries for help. If she wasn't, they really might have needed a Luke beeper. So much for him hiding from Vader, or him hiding from Vader, or him hiding from Vader. Why bother tracking ships through hyperspace or tediously sending thousands of probe droids around the galaxy looking for the rebels when you could just track people? Why bother with these weird little spy dudes to alert the bad guys when the good guys are nearby? How could Mando even be sure he wasn't being set up? Couldn't he have just been given a dead paperweight instead of a working device? He wouldn't have known the difference. Why would he even accept a bounty like this with virtually no information if he could just fly somewhere else in the galaxy and find an easier bounty? One that at least had the target's picture, for Christ's sake. They make it seem like he really needs the money, but he has to work with the guild on Nevarro? Like, is that mandatory? Come on, man, there's Tatooine, Nal Hutta, Nar Shaddaa. I'm not well enough versed in Star Wars lore to know all the Outer Rim places, but if even 1/4 of the Outer Rim of this galaxy has seedy worlds full of crime, then why can't he go somewhere else to collect a better bounty? Man, Nevarro sucks! Oh my god, that was only one thing, the fobs, and it made me have so many questions! Point is, and I know you get this by now, but these fobs just kinda screw with everything. They kinda don't work in Star Wars. And not to belabor a point, even though is kind of what I'm doing here. If it was me, I wouldn't have used them at all. It would have been much better, in my opinion, if Mando actually had to work for it, you know? Could you imagine? It would have done far more to fortify his investigative skill set as a bounty hunter. This isn't bounty hunting. This is point and click.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Yeah, well, maybe it should be. That's why I feel like a good rule of thumb in writing is less is more. In other words, when your characters are given less to work with, then more can actually happen via creative thinking in order to overcome a problem. And I feel like maybe that's the whole point of Star Wars ever since the beginning. A story about a bunch of scrappy rebels that don't have 𝗞𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏𝗏Johnsons to work with, but they have to beat the Empire anyway. Where'd that come from? No one would have liked Rogue One if all they had to do was scan the base from orbit with a magical bullshit scanner box and then zip away with the Death Star plans like nothing happened. Stories are built on high stakes and tension, so you have to be really, really careful when giving your characters extremely convenient technology that could break all of that. What kind of story do you have if the heroes are just given everything they need to accomplish what they set out to do? That's boring. Same goes for when they're given literal plot armor.
I will make you some plot armor, made out of pure Disneyum. Your signet shall be the mouse.
It's not like just having the armor is bad, but it creates a situation that makes it more difficult to make us believe that our hero could ever be put in jeopardy. Not when there's no blaster bolts that hit him through the gaps, or there's no technology that evens the score with Beskar. Not even lightsabers, not even a little bit, and just once. I would have loved to see Din Djarin actually have to try to escape danger with an injured shoulder or leg that he received due to blaster fire. Just once! Season 2 of The Mandalorian kicked off with, well, more side quests! Yay! But then it took a hard left to crank the fan service up to 11. Jesus, we got Bo-Katan from Clone Wars, Ahsoka from Clone Wars, Dark Troopers from, like, video games, and Luke freaking Skywalker. It does make me wonder if they're really going to retcon the sequel trilogy through The Mandalorian and the, 100-something other spin-off shows these greedy bastards want to have done by yesterday.
What could possibly go wrong?
They'll never openly admit they made mistakes with the sequels, but as a wise man once said, actions speak louder than words. It's no secret Mandalorian is almost universally loved, while the sequels, well, you know. But just when we thought they were trying to distance themselves from that flaming dumpster fire, they go and start cloning things again? Oh, why? Why are we cloning again? Does this mean it's Snoke? No. You know what? This leads me along to another small gripe I have with the show, actually. Strange-ass medical procedures. Let me ask you something. What scientist, with more than 2 brain cells to rub together, takes a green Force-sensitive baby of unknown origin, extracts its blood, and then straight up starts doing blood transfusions?
Then, sadly, the body rejected the blood.
Like, am I out of my mind for nitpicking this? Even some humans have incompatible blood types between other humans. I can only imagine what would happen if you tried injecting the blood of whatever he is into you willy-nilly. Like, were they that desperate to murder innocent victims in extremely strange and horrifying ways? Was Gideon part of a psychotic Imperial contest to see who could rack up the most kills using the most unconventional methods? Maybe that's actually what these are. Maybe they're not clones, they're just what happens to those poor souls that received a shot of concentrated Grogu. Yikes. Rip. On a side note, it's kind of funny now that we have 2 giant evil entities that want to milk Baby Yoda for all he's worth. But yeah, so like we knew the stormtroopers were terrible shots and all that, but even Imperial scientists are apparently several grades below what scientists should be. Except Galen Erso, I guess.
You're an inspired scientist.
No, I'm not. Jin, I'm totally smart. I put a hidden weakness inside this giant monstrosity. Wasn't even that hard. The rest of the scientists were out doing blood transfusions for some reason, so I had the entire lab to my... Oh god, that guy just grew a tail. Jin, I gotta go. I'll call you back. This show has a hearty helping of good old bad guy incompetence. It's a sad trope they painstakingly run with here instead of just doing things that make sense. Just like with the First Order, I'm stuck wondering how these guys even rose to power. Like, how the hell did the Mandalorians lose to foot soldiers who rush into laser fire without thinking? How did they lose to foot soldiers that wear armor made out of exploding paper mache?
Someone tell me why we even need a Mandalorian.
Well, apparently they're the greatest warriors in the galaxy. So they say.
Why are they all dead?
The devil makes a good point. Just saying. They can't shoot, they can't dodge, they can't get behind cover, they have no tactics, they just rush in and provide our heroes with freaking score streaks. And that is really annoying because remember what I said about stories and how the stakes need to be high in order to provide lots of tension, which then helps drive the story forward and leaves you on the edge of your butt? Well, yeah. That. The Mandalorian's bad guys, unfortunately, suffer from the same problem as the sequel trilogy bad guys, and boy is that ever not good. I swear, ever since Disney took over Star Wars, there's been this thing where the bad guys actually get more power the more insane and psychotic they are.
I'll live the Empire.
I mean, look at Werner Herzog's faction. He sets up a hidden lab that looks like a generic house in a poor town, and his guards are wearing worn and dirty armor, thus saving on expenses. Frugal. I mean, it's not like their shitty armor can become any less functional by being dirty. He seems more careful, more smart in his execution, but he dies with the rest of his men because I guess he's not insane enough. So much for nuance, I guess. Gideon, by contrast, installs a giant frickin' base out in the open, completely visible from just about anywhere, also containing a lab, and then staffs it with a skeleton crew? Because reasons?
It's got a skeleton crew, but for some reason it hasn't been abandoned.
Like, what's the point of even having that there if you're not going to expend the resources to protect it? Just one dubstep Terminator ought to do. Keeping it there with limited protection, with a functioning lab full of information, just seems like a waste. How the hell did Gideon rise above other Imperial warlords by killing their men, which he could have recruited instead? But also makes me wonder where he gets his damned resources. If you're trying to keep yourselves hidden from the New Republic, or just from competing Imperial factions, or Mandalorians, or whatever, wasting resources like this seems like a stupid idea. Gideon's actions are simply not in line with someone who's getting the troops, firepower, and resources that he is getting. And it really, really sucks, because the concept of a shattered empire forced into hiding, forced to regroup and reevaluate their strategies, forced to conserve their resources, and forced to become much more careful, tactical, and smart if they ever want to succeed moving forward, was something that I have really wanted to see ever since I first saw the original trilogy. I wanted Episode 7 to essentially flip the strategic dynamic between the Alliance and the Empire, former admirals and other military leaders of the old Empire becoming warlords and vying for power, or trying to regroup and reestablish things. Maybe some of them would finally come to their senses and join the Republic, maybe even assist the Republic by giving intel on some of the remaining fractured Empire groups and leaders. leaders. Others would attempt to maintain or rebuild a fledgling empire, hoping it could be reborn and attain its former glory. This makes sense after dealing such a heavy blow to the empire, cutting off its head and wiping out a significant portion of its top brass and resources. And it's a piece of world building that really sold me on the potential of this show. But sadly, it's almost universally undermined by its terrible execution of that idea. Moff Gideon is an ill-prepared, overconfident leader that wastes valuable resources, wastes opportunities, wastes time, and ends up getting captured in the end. He even had Terminators, man, but they take longer to boot up than Windows during an update, and he had them all deactivated at once, instead of leaving a few of them active at any given time like a standard crew rotation, in case of an intrusion by Mandalorians, competing Imperial factions, or fucking Skywalkers, any of which could happen at any given time apparently. Tell me something. If you're surrounded by enemies on all sides, and you got cafeteria computers all over the place that tell anyone with a damn face where you are you gonna leave your Terminators powered off? Are you sure? Are you really sure about that? Speaking of cafeteria computers, my god, let's get into this episode because wow, this episode was bonkers. I could start by nitpicking the two TIE fighters doing a strafing run right next to their only shipment of Rhydonium. Wait, is that... Holy shit, did they manage to clone Critical Drinker twice? Because I swear I just heard them both say in perfect unison,
Nah, it'll be fine.
wow! You know what? Looks like Mav and Goose over there just buzzed the tower, huh?
Fuck off, show.
I guess they can get away with it. So, in this episode, we start with a bit more subterfuge with the good guys' plans. They have to sneak inside this big Imperial refinery thingy. So they don disguises, create a backup plan of staging snipers nearby in case shit gets weird. They steal a big truck, and we get a nice little monologue from Bill Burr about the ugliness of war. I freaking love it so far. It's already way better at nuance than the sequels. Yay, killing my former buddies, because I'm a good guy now. Woo! I swear, to me, half the sequels are just incoherent screaming. Am I alone in that? Once they get inside, though, things get real weird real quick. They're like 10 feet away from the truck right here, and Mayfeld's like,
I can't go in there.
Why not?
It's Valinez.
Will he recognize you?
I don't know.
Let's just do this quick, and we can get out of here.
But he doesn't go back to get his helmet. He did leave it in the truck, remember? He has it with him. This is a stealth mission, for God's sake. Why are you not in disguise? Why does this not matter to either of you? To make things worse, Mando takes off his helmet to have an Imperial scanner scan his face, and that's supposed to let him in to a secure terminal for some reason. Somehow, despite him never having served in the Empire, they've already established that this scanner can scan your DNA and cross-reference it with ISB.
Because these remnant bases are set up and run by ex-ISB. If you get scanned and your genetic signature shows up on any New Republic register, you're gonna be detected.
But why does this scanner only need a face to unlock? Any generic face will work, apparently? Even non-Empire? Even those with zero security clearance? Then what's the point? Like shit, man, even my laptop has better face recognition security than this. Thanks, Bill Gates. You keep on doing... whatever the hell it is you do. This base was supposed to be a secret base ran by Imperial security, but the security aspect is completely non-existent. And why is highly sensitive ship deployment location info stored on an unsecured terminal in the freaking cafeteria of a refinery? Why? Any of this? Why? Why doesn't Mayfeld scan his face? I mean, they should have deleted his access by now, true, but at least he stood some kind of chance of actually having access between the two of them. Better yet, why the fuck don't they both just piss off for a few minutes and wait for that guy who Mayfeld has beef with to just leave? And then none of this would have happened. You're telling me they can't possibly pose as guards for another few minutes while they wait for Lieutenant 𝗲𝗄𝗏𝗔𝗠𝗰 over there to finish his lunch and go back to work? This whole thing broke down so badly, I was laughing. I can't believe adults came up with this. Could you imagine these two playing Metal Gear? The whole episode would be nothing but angry noises. But don't worry, we got action, so it's fine. And hey, if nothing else, remember, Drinker's on the job. He can clean this shit up with napalm. So yeah, don't think about it. Speaking of not thinking about stuff, don't think about the loot crate dragon. Don't think about how the hell it can swim through sand and solid rock. Come on, really? And don't think about why the hell it ate a tiny little Tusken Raider instead of a much bigger bantha. It's like a human eating one pea instead of a steak. Come on, really? They studied its digestion for generations, but lol, no. Don't think about why a Force-sensitive Clone Wars veteran commander and former Jedi with years of combat lightsaber training fought like this to some random nobody. Come on, really? Don't think about how someone managed to not only kill all of these Mandalorians, but they left their valuable armor there in a nice neat pile instead of taking it for themselves, despite the fact that like the whole galaxy seems to know how valuable Beskar is. Come on, really? Don't think about how Din Djarin apparently didn't come up with a backstory for himself. Oops, lol. Yeah, it's okay, Commander. You see, he's deaf. Right there, brown nose? Yeah. All right, let's have a drink. I guess all I'm trying to say is, The Mandalorian, with its flaws, is a fun show. Fan service is nice. Favreau and Filoni are trying to at least give the fans what they want, and that really can't be understated right now. I know that. Nothing wrong with enjoying something, by the way. Hell, I already mentioned the fact that I enjoyed this show. I still kind of do, despite its flaws. When analyzing its writing, of course, I gotta be honest with what I see. It could definitely be better, but maybe they still have time to make it better and improve upon the characters, the writing, the backstories, the world building, etc. But with the way things are with Disney right now, there are so many Star Wars shows that they want to crank out as fast as possible that I don't know if the writing teams behind these shows can keep up. It's an unfortunate side effect of corporate overlords and rich investors exercising their will to make as much money as humanly possible, as opposed to simply letting passionate people create well-crafted stories for the sake of the art alone. It creates an environment where writers don't necessarily have the kind of time to work through the kinks in their rough drafts before Disney comes around and essentially yells, "Ha ha! Pencils down, bastards! Ha ha ha!" And that's assuming the writers are good writers to begin with and not, character assassinators. I used Game of Thrones earlier as an example to describe the differences in writing when they kill off characters versus when The Mandalorian does it. The thing about Game of Thrones is, before Season 8 is that it had great writing. Again, before Season 8, before the clusterfuck. People often wonder why that show became so successful. Was it the mature themes and elements like nudity, torture, gore? Was it the dragons? Was it the explosions? Was it the White Walkers? Was it the magic? Was it the armies, the pure spectacle of it all? Or was it the rich, complex storytelling that gave context to all of that? Was it the characters themselves and how they were grown in completely unexpected ways? I submit to you, whoever might be listening to this, that high-caliber writing pays for itself in the end. I don't hate this show, and I'm not trying to piss on those who see past its flaws for all of the much-needed good it's bringing to the fan base. I just see its potential to become better, more impactful, more rich in character growth and development. I see its potential to tell its own story in its own corner of the galaxy without having to rely so much on legacy characters and member berries in order to get people hooked. But it's not like these issues can't be fixed and improved going forward. There's still time. Show's already fun as hell. There's a lot to love here, like I said. And if you forget everything else I've said in this long-ass video, well, then TLDR, solidify that actions have real consequences. It's a big galaxy. In theory, it's full of dangerous people and factions. Mando shouldn't just be able to jump into every single hostile situation and expect to walk away unscathed. Star Wars has always been built on the positive message of overcoming loss and never giving up when things get tough. But Din Djarin literally flies through one obstacle after another. Grow the character. Get him to connect with someone so that he can suffer some kind of emotional loss, which he can then overcome. Sadly, that ship has kind of sailed with the Mandalorians on Navarro, but maybe we could do something with Bo-Katan's faction, I don't know. Give him a lasting injury where he has to spend several episodes in a weakened state, forcing himself to continue, or having him walk away from all of it for a time in lieu of sorting out some serious shit in his life. Or both. Hell, it's a show, not a movie. You could do anything. You got time. Give him a metaphorical bloody nose that teaches him and the audience that there are powerful entities in this galaxy that mean business, and that going up against them means serious consequences if he's not careful, smart, and pushing himself and his abilities so he has the best chance of success. Real people learn and grow. All the best stories emulate real life, and that's a big, big part of connecting the audience with the show, because one day you're going to run out of member berries and you're going to have to do something. Have we ever even seen Din Djarin training? How is he so good? We need a Rocky training montage. I guess what I'm trying to say is give him big challenges to overcome so the audience can be there with him, experiencing the sting of his losses and the sweetness of his victories. If none of these types of experiences happen to him, this will become a show where the hero doesn't lose anything, and therefore basically doesn't do anything. He'd just be an empty shell of a character wandering around from one objective to the next, barely breaking a sweat in the process, all while trying to have the viewer believe that there's some form of actual danger happening right now. But like I said, I believe there's definitely still time to amp things up like that, and here's hoping they do, because this show could really go from being fun, cheap entertainment to really showcasing the immense power of storytelling on people's lives, and especially during times like these, when we could all really use some well-crafted escapism, I'm all for better stories. Well, that's it for me. Catch you later, everybody.